Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Roger Hernandez Jr., presenting the Alliance for a Human Scale City and the East Harlem Civic Alliance. This public forum is meant to involve residents in a civic fashion to learn more about the candidates who hope to win this November's election as the next mayor of New York City. Our city is being fragmented by competing interests. It is the responsibility of every New York City resident to exercise their own voting preferences and that right to choose amongst all others. We challenge all present here tonight to learn who will be their next choice for the mayor of the city of New York. We thank you all and our volunteers for showing up. Enjoy tonight's program and let's get ready to mumble. Without further ado, I give you Mr. Mario Messina from the Alliance for a Human Scale City.
Good evening, I'm Mario Messina. I am one of the co-founders of the Alliance for a Human Scale City, and I want to welcome you to this great evening, which promises to be very, very interesting. I thank you for coming, and most of all, I'd like to thank all the people that have made this possible tonight with some hard work. Especially, I want to single out Ann McDermott, Christine Theodens, Alan Berger, Alison Greenberg, William Dugan, Leslie Doyle, Lee Ellsworth, and a bunch of others that I'm sorry I don't have the time to mention. I also would like to thank the candidates for coming and for giving us a wonderful debate, I believe. And now I'd like to turn it over to Ann. Thank you very much.
You live stream this because he didn't show, the live stream guy. Just letting you know. Hi, everybody. My name is Ann McDermott. Hi, yep, good to see you. The Declaration of Independence, which was read on the corner of Broad and Wall Street on July 9th, 1776, states, governments are instituted among men deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That's us, okay? So that's why we're here tonight. Welcome to the Mayoral Forum. I hope you have a fun and informative evening. I'm part of both the Alliance for Human Scale City and East Harlem Civic Alliance. Just a few logistic things. The bathrooms are on either side of the room on the outside. And just to tell you, each candidate will be given 3 minutes to introduce themselves. We ask you to state your party, because we know you're all from different parties, because this is a bipartisan event. And then afterwards, there'll be a panel discussion with several questions that we've prepared in advance. And I will be timing you, so you'll get a ding at the end of your 3 minutes. In the panel discussion, you'll be given a minute, maybe a little bit more, for your response to each question. We highly encourage everybody in the audience to take pictures, videos, Snapchat, tweet, Instagram, put it out on social media. We have up here the hashtag, and it's also on your flyer that you received, because we want to get the word out. We need all New Yorkers to get involved in our government to make sure that we have a livable city. So now I'm going to introduce Gina Pollara, who we're honored to have with us, who's going to be the moderator for the panel discussion. Gina is currently the senior advisor to the Rethink Studio, a planning organization and think tank that has developed a unified transportation plan for the New York City metropolitan area. She was president and CEO of the Municipal Arts Society in 2016, a nearly 125-year-old civic advocacy organization that fights for the responsible stewardship and design excellence of New York City's public realm and the built environment. She's a board member of the New York Preservation Archive Project and is on the advisory board of the Triangle Shirt Waste Factory Fire Memorial and the Neighborhood Preservation Association. She holds a Bachelor of Architecture degree from the Irwin S. Channon School of Architecture of the Cooper Union for the Advancement of Science and Science and Arts, and Bachelor of Arts degree from Bennington College. Gina. So Gina will be to a moderator when we get started, but right now we can start with the candidates. We'll start in alphabetical order. So that means Sal, you're up. Hey, come over here, come over here. That means Sal Albanese, everybody.
Thanks, Ann, and good evening, everyone. Great to be here. Congratulations on this valuable forum. I'm running for mayor because I love the city, and the present leadership has failed to address major issues important to all of us and the city's future. We know that affordable housing is fast disappearing. The character of many neighborhoods is being eroded by unbalanced development. We have zoning but no planning, and we know that a lot of these policies are driven by the influence of big real estate and their contributions to the candidates. We know that homelessness is at record levels, and part of the reason is because of mismanagement. We have the worst traffic congestion in the city's history, and no one is addressing it. Our mass transit system is virtually being ignored by this administration. It's the lifeblood of the city. Pay-to-play corruption is rampant, as we know with the two investigations from the DA in Manhattan and also the U.S. Attorney's Office. I'd like to offer some big ideas to turn this trend around. I think we have to fix our political system first. It's bankrupt. Certainly at the state and federal level, but cities are in the vanguard of reform. We can make change right here in New York City. New York City should be like Athens, a model of democracy. And I've got a plan called Democracy Vouchers, which I think this group has adopted, which I stole from Seattle, which basically calls for every single New York City voter to receive rebates of $425 vouchers, and they can donate that to anyone running for municipal office. So everyone is on an even keel. It ends pay to play. It ends the bundling of money by lobbyists and people who do business with the city. My affordable housing plan calls for a peer-to-peer tax on luxury housing that's being purchased by foreign oligarchs. 50% of the city's properties are owned by very wealthy foreigners who park their money and leave those condos empty. Same thing's happening in Brooklyn. I want to tax that and set up a fund that's going to build real affordable housing, not what de Blasio's building. Mass transit, constantly underfunded. What I want to do is increase the city's share, and then go to Albany and fight hard for Assemblyman Jim Brennan, a good friend of mine. He left the assembly. He had a bill which directed a certain percentage of the personal income tax right into mass transit. We can't survive as a city unless we have subway systems that take people around, and it's modern. The signals are modern, and we also need surface transit. I look forward to your questions. I think this is where we live in the greatest city in the world. We're in the dark ages in some areas, and our prominence means that we have the responsibility to be a model for the country and for the world. Thank you.
What do we have up next?
Oh, next, C, Kevin.
You're next.
Hello, welcome to the forum. I'm glad some of you came down to listen to us and get involved in your community, which is always a nice thing. I think basically a lot of you just want to know what's going to happen with government and how they're going to address the issues that you care most about. Like the school system, how there's charter schools for certain individuals, and for other children, they have the regular schools. It's just not a good system. We need a system that works for every child equally. We don't need to ship some children to a special school that does has better education for some children, and the rest of them get left behind. What about some of the kids who don't get into the charter school system? So it's got to be bad as a child to say, hey, I want to get a good education, but they won't let me go to that school. I have to go to the other school that's close, closer to my house. There's a lot of other issues. Of course, corruption in government is rampant. We all know that. We all know that the politicians take money from builders, and they're the ones they answer to, especially Mr. de Blasio. His biggest campaign donors seem to get whatever they want. They seem to skirt the laws in the city. They don't get charged with anything, and it's kind of ridiculous if you ask me. The vision I have for the city is to put someone into government who listens to the people. Like, I was a fireman for 20 years. We got the call, we went, took care of what we had to take care of. We did it efficiently. We listened to what the people had to say, and we took care, we did the job, and that's just not happening in today's government. It's just very. Yes, my name is Kevin Coenen, by the way, and I hope you'll give me a chance to respond to you, and it's just very disheartening when you call an agency and you have to fill out 100 forms and they tell you they're going to get back to you in about 6 months, and then finally they get to you and there's nothing they can do. It's just, then you got to go to court, and then all of a sudden you got to give a lawyer thousands of dollars, and 2 people go into the back room, and you sit there listening and hoping that you're going to get taken care of, and nothing ever happens. It's ridiculous. So hopefully we'll have a change in government. I don't know who out of here is going to win, but we need something different than what we're getting right now.
Next is Darren Aquino. Sorry, Darren, I don't know my alphabet.
Hi, everybody. Let me tell you a little about me. I grew up a few blocks from here. I grew up disabled, challenged, faced a lot of obstacles in my life. In all of those challenges, I founded an organization called Advocates for Disabled Americans, Veterans, Police, Firemen, and Families, to make opportunities and work the abilities within people that was available. But the law changed in 1990 to remove discrimination. So I founded this organization, and I started defending civil servants, disabled children. And since 9/11, and the ADA been empowered already 15 years, but nobody was getting relief. My friend Gary's not here, first responder. They're not getting the services. And these are constitutional services. These are constitutional services. I'm getting to the point of the fight. I did this for 25 years. Why I'm running for mayor is because for the past 15 years, we saw criminal politics at its best. Self-absorbed leaders that had a duty and a responsibility to uphold the rights of us, the citizens, we the people. When you look today, 20,000 additional homeless came under Bloomberg. And under de Blasio, in a short term, another 20,000. That's very troubling. But here's the big part. Those men and women that went to fight to Afghanistan, Iraq, to go and defend the freedom after the attack of our towers. And if you're a native New Yorker like me and my friend Bo, we lived through that. Other people come and they say, oh wow, we heard about it. It's not the same as living through it. Seeing the devastation to city employees that paid for these benefits, and they get caught in red tape. These are our first responders. Now, you got 4,000 veterans on the streets, homeless, mentally ill from PTSD. As an advocate, That's disgraceful. As an American, it's a crime. It's a crime of the elected officials. So all of my skills as an advocate, I'm a good people person. I acquired and did things myself. I was the kid that grew up here locally that had the clubfoot and polio. I was dyslexic. I had many challenges that when I wanted to go to college, there was no services available. None whatsoever. So I started pushing for the ADA. President Bush was good to me, Reagan was good to me. Okay? Well, that's why I'm running for mayor.
And next is Bo Dietl, who has to leave by 8:30, but thank you for coming. Thank you, everybody. You are.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me. There was another place I got invited to tonight, East 83rd Street, the Metropolitan Club. And then I said to Malapakis, this Republican leader, no, I'm going to my old home. I was a policeman up here in East Harlem in the 1970s and in the 1980s. I guess Nicole thought it was more important to be down there with all the rich people. I think it's important to be up here with the real people that need someone to support them. And I'm here and I'm proud that I'm here. And believe me, let us stay on 83rd Street. First of all, thank me for inviting me tonight. East Harlem was my turf. I was in anti-crime in East Harlem. We know about my life as a decoy cop. I was mugged 500 times. I was hospitalized 30 times. I was stabbed. I was shot at. I never killed anybody in my whole career. I did a career. We know all about the nun rape on 116th Street. My partner Tom Collar and I hunted down those two creeps. We got one in Chicago, one in New York. You know, I used to hide in back of stores on 116th Street near the Ponce and the El San Juan near the Cosmo Theater. I used to get my Cucha Fritos over there because I love Cucha Fritos. And one of the things was when those store owners were being extorted by the Savage Skulls, the Seven Immortals, I used to hang out the back of the store. When they extorted my Puerto Rican store owners, I used to pop out of the back. They wouldn't come back to that store anymore because they were extorting my people here in my community. Now I'm back today because 32 years I've been running a business with 95% minorities. In New York City, I've been running a very successful business. Now I'm going back to the script here. Mayor de Blasio will tell you whatever you want to hear. What has he really delivered the past 3 years? Look around. We see what's going on here. All our homes are being gobbled up by these Wall Street yuppies who don't stop in your local stores to shop. They don't go anywhere. They go to their own stores. You've got gangs that are creeping back into the neighborhood. The homeless situation is out of control. And what does this mayor do? Nothing. He says he's going to close down Rikers. Is that really the answer to the problem? The solution is to fix Rikers and not blow $10 billion on some social experiment that he wants to try with these new jails. We have problems at Rikers, but certainly someone who's a manager could fix them. De Blasio may have a fancy degree and talk real nice, but you know what? You're no fools. I couldn't afford to go to college. I worked as a laborer first, then I worked as an ironworker on the World Trade Center before I became a cop. I wanted to start an initiative for police where you have a high school diploma. Let's bring them on the police department. I'd rather have kids out there for their own communities rather than some Irish kid, no disrespect to the Irish kid, from Levittown controlling them. Well, that's 3 minutes already? Oh, wow. We got a lot more, but we'll get into the questions and answers. Thank you very much. I'll be up here.
Hi, and I want to introduce Mr. Gangi.
I was not invited to the East 83rd Street event, but I'm glad, Bo, you came here.
Well, I'm happy I came here.
We all are. My name is Bob Gangi. Just a few words about myself. Born in Brooklyn, raised in Brooklyn, moved to Manhattan in my early to mid-20s, lived in Manhattan basically I've lived in New York City all my life. I've worked on human, social, criminal, and racial justice issues all my career for over 50 years. I'm running for mayor. My platform, our platform, is focused on creating a city that is just, safe, inclusive, affordable for all New Yorkers. We are advancing an agenda to promote racial, social, and economic justice. The same kind of promises that de Blasio made in 2013 when he said he was going to rewrite the Tale of Two Cities narrative for New York. Well, he has failed all across the spectrum of important issues to effectively address the social, racial, and economic inequities in our city. So we are going to take on issues like policing. We're going to abolish broken windows policing. We're going to end the quota system. We will, day one promise, we will dismiss all the cops who were involved in the death of Eric Garner, including Dan Pantaleo, who applied a chokehold. The department, the chokehold is prohibited by the NYPD zone guidelines. Eric Garner is dead. The young man who took the video is locked up in prison, and all the officers who piled on Eric Garner, who ignored him saying 11 times that I can't breathe, they still work for the NYPD and are being paid by your and mine tax dollars. We will, in addressing the public schools and the need to improve academic outcomes for all the students who go to our public schools, we will promote, in fact, it will probably be the top priority of my administration, we will promote small classes in every school across the 5 boroughs of New York City. The research and common sense tells us that the small class size improves the academic outcome for all students across race and class lines. No commitment on the part of the de Blasio administration to move to small class size. Okay, so I got 30 seconds left. On affordable housing, I think many of you in this room are familiar with the rezoning plans that the de Blasio administration has promoted. I make a couple of promises. We will scrap all those rezoning plans when we take office. We will not work with major profit-making real estate developers to provide affordable housing. We work directly with community-based housing, renovation, and maintenance groups to provide truly affordable housing for the people who live in the neighborhoods where the housing is being built. Thank you.
We've also been joined by Michael Tolkin.
Thank you so much. So I'm a last minute addition. It's so great to be here with all of you. And I obviously am a little bit younger and not than you. And so I probably have a somewhat different perspective on many of the issues that we're facing today. But I think there is a common thread that all of us have in common, everyone in this room, which is our economy is no longer working for us. And that plays out in terms of our education system, it plays out in terms of the money in our pockets, it plays out in terms of our public amenities and parks and open spaces. It plays out in social justice issues. And so rather than talk about all those things for the moment, I'm just gonna focus on the economic issue because I don't believe we can have social justice without economic justice. And it's only getting worse when we talk about income inequality and we talk about the wealth gap in this city and in this country. With automation, with jobs being eliminated each day, and with that, the rate of job loss going up over the next several years, we need to be much more focused on this issue. We need to be investing in our local economies. We need to be getting money in pockets of people today, and we need to be investing in our social welfare programs. I'm not a socialist by any means. I come from the private sector. I've started a variety of companies, mostly tech-based companies. By the way, my name's Mike Tolkin. And sorry, say it again? What's your party? What's Democrat? And so the message that I would like to communicate is that working together, we have got to do a better job reframing our economy and structuring our capitalist society in a way that's fair and that works for everyone. I'll talk a little bit about European history. We reflect back on monarchies and we're like, that was probably not the best model. The notion that one dude had all this money and all this wealth and everyone else was starving in the streets. We're gonna look back at this period of time in New York City and say, it really didn't make a lot of sense that you had such a small group of people, 5%, 10% of the population, with 80, 90% of the wealth. And I'm not suggesting that we tax the rich into oblivion and redistribute, but I am suggesting that we need to be playing a much more, as a government, a much more proactive role in terms of creating opportunities for everyone to pull in an income, preparing our kids for the future economy by investing in programs that cultivate skills that are necessary for the future and vocational programs that give them the adequate training that they need to go and pursue jobs in a variety of different sectors. Thank you.
Thank you all for adhering to our very strict time regulations. We do want to be able to get to the questions and answers from the audience. And just for purposes of clarity, I want to say what everyone's party affiliation is. So Michael Tolkin is running on the Democratic ticket, as is Kevin Coenen, as is Sal Albanese. Bo Dietl is on the independent ticket. Darren Aquino is on the Republican ticket, and Robert Gangi is on the Democratic ticket, just so we're all clear about that. So to reiterate the rules, I will read a question, and then we'll just start at one end and go down. Anne will be our super timekeeper, and
you'll have to use the microphone.
Okay, the one over there isn't working?
It's working, but.
Okay, we'll just pass the microphone along. We're hampered by. Yeah, it's the same question for all of you, and some of you previewed and answers to some of these questions in your opening remarks, but it's an opportunity to reiterate. So you'll all take the question and then just pass it along, and Anne will keep you all to a minute. Is that clear? Yep, okay, good. So the first question is, what is your position on Mayor de Blasio's mandatory inclusionary housing and zoning for quality and affordability, what we call MIHCQA? Do you think it's a good thing or not so good? And would you plan to continue the upzonings in communities like this, like East Harlem? How will you address issues of displacement and gentrification? And in a related topic, will you support community zoning plans such as those written by the Chinatown Working Group? So it all has to do with the rezoning, upzoning.
And we have a minute.
And you have you gotta be concise.
We do not support de Blasio's mandatory inclusion housing plan. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, we would take an entirely different course to deal with both the affordable housing issue and the homelessness issue. The main thing driving homelessness is the lack of affordable housing in the city. And the plan that de Blasio has come up to provide for affordable housing is mainly to provide sweetheart deals that include incentives for major real estate developers to build used housing projects, a small percentage of which are supposed to be set aside as affordable units. We know that in many cases, even though small percentage of so-called affordable units are not affordable for the people who live in the community where the housing is being built. So our approach would be to work with neighborhood housing development groups and only neighborhood housing development groups. Just like for the most part, local housing groups have been excluded by the de Blasio administration process, we would place a priority on working with those groups. To the extent that major real estate developers would be involved, it would only be if they were willing to provide technical assistance to the community-based housing groups on a contractual basis, but the housing would be owned either by the neighborhood housing groups or by the tenants. We would also jettison the AMI, the area median income. We would base the the housing that's being built in local communities, on its ability to meet what we would call a CMI, a community median income, to make sure, again, that all the housing that's being built is affordable for the people in those neighborhoods. It's the best way to preserve the character of the neighborhood and to avoid gentrification.
We decided to give everybody a minute and a half, so we gave you.
See, I helped all of you.
We've increased it to a
Okay, you
minute and a
done?
half.
I don't agree with anything de Blasio's done. He's hurt, destroyed our city. He's got veterans on the street homeless. He was supposed to put 20,000 affordable housing units per year, 14,000. And that was supposed to be in Bloomberg as well. So if you do the math for 15 years, that's why we got so many homeless. We have a lot of abandoned properties in New York that we can take over, refurbish, we can provide affordable housing, we can take our veterans off the street and give them free housing. We have abandoned state land. We have so many properties that we're not looking because we've let government lead us instead of lead government. We're not keeping the books like we should. So there's many things we can do in New York and throughout all of the boroughs with the properties we possess, and they're not doing it. De Blasio and the criminal acts of the entire, we allow a third term. They pick and choose who stays and who goes. And you wonder why you don't have anything. You don't have anything, or affordable housing, or a good job. Your taxes are going up. You have no place to work. Where can you go? They want to kick everybody from New York City and put us in the outer boroughs, and they want to make New York City for the rich and the wealthy. And that's it. They want us out. They don't care. You don't put 90 new shelters and grab people from the street and they're mentally ill and you don't vet them. And you just drop them in the center of neighborhoods. There was no vetting, there was no correctness. It was appease the people.
On to Mr. Dietl.
I guess this one's good. Well, you gave me a fast 3 minutes there. I got a couple of things I think come right into this topic. This mayor has left the people of Harlem behind. Real estate guys are cleaning up on the high-end constructions. Where are the minority business entity contracts? We're getting crumbs. As mayor, I will have a deputy mayor's office of minority affairs to make sure that minority-owned businesses are getting their fair share of our economic prosperity. MBEs won't be just political talk. I will make it happen. They will get the general contracting jobs. We're talking about, we just looked at the news the other night, there were several hundred abandoned apartments that Big Bird de Blasio doesn't know about. The man is a corrupt individual. $4.3 million in illegal campaign contributions that he got to keep. There was an investigation by the head of the Board of Elections Enforcement that gave it to Preet and gave it to Cy Vance for criminal prosecution. He has never returned that $4.3 million. I've called upon the governor. I've called upon the Attorney General Schneiderman. I sent letters. What's up with this? You can take money. He paid for play with all the big real estate guys, and he takes money and does what he wants. Part of the other thing is he can't get along. He can't get along with our own governor. Section 8 housing is not a bad thing, but when the mayor doesn't even talk to the governor, how are we going to get anything done in New York? This man, de Blasio, we have to make a one-term mayor. He has not helped the black community. I was with Calvin Butts in Central Harlem at his church, and he says, quote unquote, Bo, you can say it, Bill de Blasio has done nothing for the black community.
You know, a candidate for mayor suspended his campaign today, and one of the reasons he listed was that he said that you can't compete without dark money, which gets to the crux of what we're all doing here. None of these policies that we're talking about will come to pass unless we fix the political system. That's why my democracy voucher plan is a great plan. And de Blasio certainly can't fix the system because he's owned lock, stock, and barrel by big real estate. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. No ifs, ands, or buts. And not Reverend Butts. Calvin. The bottom line is that his policies have failed. I think Bob is right. Displacement is at an all-time high. His mandatory inclusionary zoning does not work. And I want to build real affordable housing. And I talked about my tax, which, by the way, is not pie in the sky. Vancouver and London just passed it. It's a pied-à-terre tax, taxing foreign oligarchs who park their money here in Manhattan and also in Brooklyn and use that money to build real affordable housing. You can have all of the ideas in the world, but if you don't have a plan to pay for this stuff, you can't get it done. And I've got a real concrete proposal. I'm also a former council member, and I remember in Brooklyn, what the East Brooklyn congregations did with Koch. I was not a big Koch fan, but he built a lot of affordable housing, working with church groups and nonprofit developers.
Thank you, Mr. Albanese.
So that's another model that I'm going to use.
I think the main problem is the money that is designated to the city is used for things that are improper, and there's no accountability for this money. When we talk about the city time 9/11 system that was supposed to go into effect years ago, millions of dollars went through the system, and nothing ever happened with that money. When I used to run around this neighborhood with the fire department, I see a lot of vacant lots, I see a lot of buildings that could be demolished, and if they want to put in a building, they should be able to take the budget that was just passed and take a couple of $1 million and put up a big building like they have in Midtown of 100 stories and get people that come in and can afford to live there. I mean, the problem is the money that we're getting, we're not doing the right thing with it. We're giving developers, like they're saying, free land, 99-year leases without having to pay the city anything. So the main problem and the main focus should be the money that we're given and that's taken in by the city needs to be watched over a little more carefully, and we have to decide what to do with this money and how we're going to use it properly.
Thank you.
So, I think everyone wants their neighborhoods to be upgraded. We need more parks, we need cleaner streets, quality of life issues need to be addressed. So the notion of investing in our communities is a very positive one, so long as we're not displacing people in the process. And so the best thing that we can do is make sure that you have more money in your pocket today, because that is your power. That is your ability to stay in your home, to stay in your neighborhood. And so from that standpoint, we're gonna be implementing a series of tax cuts. Anyone making under 120 grand will not pay any city personal income tax. We're gonna waive the sales tax, which is a regressive tax that disproportionately hurts lower income and no income people. And we're going to get rid of the commercial rent tax, which also hurts small business owners. So that's the first thing. The second is when it comes to homelessness, which is obviously a very big problem, 60,000 plus people without homes in our city now, there are a few things that we need to do immediately. The first of which is implement a universal mental health care program. Hasn't been done ever before, and it's something that we are going to be making a big theme within this campaign. Mental health is critical to not only physical health, but to one's ability to earn an income, to be a value-added member of society. And as it's been mentioned, there are plenty of homeless people today that are struggling from mental illness. Actually, as part of my process in terms of immersing myself and getting up to speed, all right, I'll get back there.
Thank you. Thank you all for that. And, we can just we'll start the question with you, the next question with you, Michael. So we've all seen this unprecedented development that's happening throughout the city. And yet we know that there has been absolutely minimal investment in infrastructure. So we, for instance, as we all know, have a sewage system that can't even handle what we produce today. So we have serious crumbling infrastructure issues. How are you going to address the critical need to upgrade and improve so much of our infrastructure? And more importantly, how are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it? How are you going to finance the upgrades?
All right, so great question.
We're doing a minute and a half.
Minute and a half, great. So I'm going to speak a little bit faster this time. In terms of how we're going to both fund and implement new infrastructure, the first thing that we're going to be doing is implementing what we're calling smart cities, a global program where we're going to be developing a physical space in New York City. We invite cities from around the country and around the globe to pool and co-locate R&D resources around smart city technology, smart city infrastructure. Fundamentally, we all have many of the same challenges, and therefore the solutions that we develop here in New York will be applicable elsewhere and vice versa. It's a way for us to reduce the cost of developing new infrastructure and new technology, while also expediting the process with which we implement these solutions. The second thing, and more broadly in terms of how we're going to fund these initiatives, we are proposing a new vehicle called city-owned enterprises, where we're going to develop for-profit companies that are owned by the city, that are owned by you. Every dollar that comes into those companies in profit goes back into your parks, into your infrastructure, and in doing so, we will democratize our economy in a way that benefits you.
Very nice. Thank you.
Basically, we would go to the federal government because we've been getting promised that they would help us with the infrastructure. This is a place that has been said from the president all the way down the line. They promised to rebuild the infrastructure. That's a federal issue that needs to be addressed, and that's who should pay for it. As far as taxes go, taxes are way too high in this city. They're disproportionate. The rich people don't have to pay as much. I feel that the working man should pay less. Maybe not the rich people pay more, but the working man should pay less. We should lower their fees on transportation, and we should also, you know, give the working man a break. I mean, there's just no way to get around it. So the best way to handle the infrastructure issue is go straight to the federal government. We need a guy who's going to work with the president, not, you know, call him out on every opportunity. You know, I don't agree with a lot of things that Trump does. I agree with a couple of things he does, but that's the man we got to work with. That's where we're getting the funds from, and he's the man we got to work with.
Okay.
Resist! Resist!
Great question, by the way, and it's so timely because the New York Times just did a story on our signal systems on the subway, which are pre-World War II, which is a disgrace. And we're supposedly the greatest city in the world, and we have terrible infrastructure. And part of my, as I mentioned in my introductory comments, I want to go up to Albany and promote the Brennan legislation, Jim Brennan, and direct money into mass transit so we don't have to play these games every single year. The funding will be there on a regular basis. And without mass transit, the city will not thrive. London is doing a much better job than we are. Some of the European cities are doing a much better job. We need that subway system to be modernized. The other thing we can do is we can actually borrow money at a very cheap rate and put it into our infrastructure. The interest rates are very low now. All the economists point out that this is a great time to devote resources to infrastructure. And I would enhance the borrowing at a very low interest rate and put it into our infrastructure. And the third thing we can do to pay for infrastructure repairs is use our pension system. We can certainly devote some of our resources out of $186 billion in our pension fund to invest in infrastructure as private equity companies do on a regular basis around the world. But that's a discussion that we can have about how we modernize our pension system.
Thank you, Mr. Albanese.
At another point.
Yeah, first of all, when you have a mayor who owns 2 houses in Brooklyn and the value is over $3.2 million, and he's paying a total tax on 2 houses, $6,000. And when you have one of my friends up in the Bronx who has a house worth $400,000, and he's paying $6,000 for his one house, this is something that is ridiculous. There's no kind of guidelines. It's a simple equation. You look at comps of houses, you find all buildings, you find out what they're worth. I mean, our infrastructure, I have my offices at One Penn Plaza. There's a derailment every day. We've got a problem. We got now a new Secretary of Housing, Ben Carson. Done a lot of TV shows with him, Ben Carson. There's a lot of money for nonprofits and also for church groups from the federal government. We should be getting those resources, very important. We also have to get people in New York City. I run a security company. I have hundreds and hundreds of minorities who are trying to pay $120 a month for the MTA. I like to subsidize people making under $30,000 to help them get back and forth to work. There's so many issues here as far as with this city falling apart. And why not let that subway, the 2nd Avenue subway, let's get it up to 125th Street. Let's get it up there. That's very important. Look, if Donald Trump wants to help New York City, well, you have to have a mayor that's going to be able to sit down with this president, whether you like him or not, and say, Donald, you love New York? We need some money in New York. The Brooklyn Bridge is coming down, and I certainly can work with him. I've called him a lot of names. We all know it. He's not my best friend. He ain't talking to me now, but if I have to go to Washington and talk to him, I will.
It's time.
Well, we know why the infrastructure broke, because that was a political ploy to establish categories of middle class, lower class, to take control. The funds got to be redistributed. There has to be oversight. They'll put lights on a bridge before they put a person in a house. It's redistribute the money, get more oversight. I don't speak as quick as everybody because I'm dyslexic. You want to know everything? I've laid it out on my webpage. I can't talk as fast as my friend Bo. So the best thing to do is look at the plans in my videos, and I give a detailed explanation because I can't give one in a minute and a half. I just can't do it. But we have to stop that corruption, redistribute the funds, and you'll see we'll revitalize each community. We restore communities. You have a separation. He put people at odds with police and community. He destroyed our city. So you got an infrastructure broken, and they're putting the money in their pockets. They're not taking care of the necessary things that have to be taken care of. So with correct oversight, and redistribution, and then the extra funds, and then a dollar tax plan I had from every citizen to revitalize the community, and $5 for every city employee, which they get back, so that if we want our city fixed, we're gonna have to do it, because these elected officials now that are in office are criminals, and they don't care about your life or mine.
Point of information, we end at 8:30? Is that?
8:45.
8:45, okay.
Mr. Dietl just has to leave at 8:30, so he'll just.
Okay, so when Bo gets up to leave, it's not because he's offended, and he's just, hope you're not going to the East 83rd Street event, Bo.
I'm here, aren't I?
Okay. A couple of points. I think one way to think about not only the need to rebuild the city's infrastructure, and there are cities all over our country, and rural areas all over our country that need infrastructure rebuilding, but to do it in a way that also helps the city's economy. So one of the things that my campaign is looking at very seriously is to create public works projects. So that, basically taking a chapter out of the New Deal's book and paying people, particularly people now who are having a hard time finding work, so young men of color, for example, to engage in helping to rebuild our city. The Department of Parks could establish public work projects. The Department of Housing and Urban Development could also initiate and fund public works projects. So that's one thing, one way of approaching it. The other, where the money would come from. For example, I think we all know that de Blasio pledged to have the city close Rikers in 10 years, which is a cockamamie pledge for him to make, because even if he's reelected, he will not have been mayor for 6 years by the time 2027 rolls around. We could close Rikers now.
Thank you. Thank you. So will you pass that to Mr. Dietl? We'll start in the middle this time, and we'll go to your right and then back to your left. So what is your position on campaign finance reform? Do you support eliminating the loophole that allows individuals to set up limited liability corporations so they can supersede the maximum individual contribution? And that includes your thoughts on pay to play. And do you have a plan to take money out of the political process in New York City?
Well, that's an easy one for me because I'm the one that's been fighting it. I just picked up the paper the other day. De Blasio was having a birthday party. $25,000 level, $10,000 level. I don't understand. They tell me I can only take $49.50 from a contribution, but yet de Blasio is able to take all this money, and still he never paid that damn $4.3 million back. That's the same money coming from these real estate guys that are paying to play. And as far as campaign, I really believe that it should be an even playing field. If de Blasio is going to take money like that, then all these candidates should be able to take money how they want. Or we abide by it. How can you have a campaign finance board? 5 people, 3 of them were appointed by Big Bird de Blasio. They're not coming after him. Then you got the Board of Elections. Her name was Miss Sugarman. She was the enforcement officer. I called her up. I sent a letter. Why don't you file civil charges against Mayor de Blasio? He beat the criminal charges, but he made campaign finance. He broke the law with that. Why are we going after him civilly and to return that damn money? Why should he start with $4.3 million than any of these candidates up here? Yes, there should be a regulatory thing, but we should all be abiding by it.
Thank you. And just, will you pass it to Mr. Albanese? Yeah, we'll go that way first. Thank you.
As I don't want to sound like I'm beating a dead horse, but as you know, campaign finance reform is the crux of my political reform, is the crux of my campaign. Because as I mentioned many times, without that, none of the issues we're talking about are going to be addressed. We're going to be whistling into the wind. And I've got a real plan. I've got my democracy vouchers, which I've borrowed from Seattle. It's not pie in the sky. It's already in place. Maine has another great system. And I want to implement nonpartisan elections in New York City. So we increase the pool of voters instead of what we have now is just a closed shop. I want a 5-year ban on all lobbying. People leave government, they become lobbyists, the next day they come back around and lobby and bundle money, by the way. Under our system in New York City, it's almost shameful that lobbyists can go out and bundle money. And people who do business with the city are bundling money. I mean, it's insane, and they call it a progressive campaign finance system. It's broken. If you look at all the citywide officials, every one of those campaign reports, you can see the same fixers and influence peddlers that have basically contributed to these campaigns. And it's not, and you look at the zip codes, it's not the middle class, working class areas. It's a very wealthy zip code in the city that contribute to these campaigns because it's very wealthy donors. And I'm not saying wealthy people are bad. These are wealthy, self-interested owners. They're doing business with the city. They're developers. And Lynn Ellsworth did a great analysis, by the way, on this. Oh, thanks.
Okay, the campaign finance system is definitely broken, but you have to look into your heart. Who are you going to vote for? You got to get someone who you trust. You got to get someone who you think is going to do the job. I mean, Bloomberg came very close to losing to Thompson. His vote count was just a little higher than Thompson's, and you know, his pocket was very deep. So this is the United States of America. Look in your heart. Look for someone who you trust, who's served the community, who's proven themselves, and vote for that person. Because we're never going to get there if we look at who has the most money.
You know, I'll answer this question through my own perspective and how we're approaching our campaign. So I funded our campaign to date, and instead of spending a lot of time raising funds from other people, my team and I are focused on developing plans for the city. As I said, I come from the startup world, so when you're starting a company, you don't just go and ask people for money. You put together a plan, you put together a series of ideas, you recruit a team, and that is the preparation for office. So from that perspective, yes, there are a lot of reforms that are needed. The campaign finance system is broken not just because of the fact that there is pay to play, but it is a very complicated system. I mean, the fact that this is what you've got as your options is a problem. Not that they're not wonderful people, but where are the women? Where are the minorities? Where are the diverse set of options that you deserve? So the best thing that I can do and that all of us can do is speak truth, share ideas, share our plans, and that's what your votes should be based on. We have plenty of mechanisms today, plenty of platforms to communicate our message very cost effectively. So you can go on social media, you can go on our websites, you can read all about our plans. But at the end of the day, it shouldn't be about who can pay to get their message in front of you. It should be about the best ideas and what is in your best interest in terms of the next 4 and 8 years, the plans that we're going to be putting forth and developing on your behalf.
Well, first of all, campaign finance reform is the small part. You have to restructure the whole election process, because what's going to happen is they'll find another loophole because you got professional criminals. We're all victims at different levels. Who can blame? I wasn't invited to the other Republican nights because one guy's got $4 billion. I can't come. You see, that's just part of it. We're all victims. We fix the policies, and we've allowed them to make their policies. There's more details on my website. This is about us and not about them. And we gotta stop thinking party. Excuse me, I'm sorry. You gotta stop thinking at this crucial time in New York, Republican or Democrat. Look at a man who's worked as a police officer. I know Bo, he's a good man. He worked hard, he's a friend, been a friend to my father, supported my father's drug prevention program for years and years, part of our family. We're core New Yorkers, most of us. If I don't go any further, I'm going to support Bo, because we need a core New Yorker, a native New Yorker who's been through and knows and who'll repair. And then you know you got to bring in a team. If you go one thing, these criminals just switch and go to something else and make it another topic to avoid. We got to restructure the whole election process. I'm in federal court now with the Board of Election.
Thank you.
Well, I'm disappointed to hear you're going to support Bo. I was hoping that I could convince you about me. It's a serious problem, and I'll acknowledge that I do not have a solid proposal for addressing it in a way that I think could be effective across the board. Wealthy people get favored treatment in every aspect of their lives, and the system and every institution within our system is weighted that way. But I have a few specific proposals, and the one I would aim most at is the requirement that all of us have to raise $175,000 to qualify for the official debate sponsored by the Campaign Finance Board. And that is both an unreasonable and unfair requirement. People like us, I can't speak for all of us, but I know one wealthy person, and the ability for us to raise $175,000 is going to be a heavy lift. We're going to go after it. We're going to reach out and put the arm on as many people as possible. If I bump somebody on the subway, I turn around and ask that person for money. But there should not be that kind of requirement in order to participate in the official debates. And it should be based on some other indication of what kind of support that you have in the community as a whole.
And that's time. Thank you.
That's it?
Thank you.
I had a wonderful point to make. You'll have to believe me.
Okay, so we'll move on to another question, and we'll start with you this time so you can get your position in there. So the residents of New York City are greatly impacted, and often to their detriment, by the relationship between the governor and the mayor.
Between what?
Between the governor and the mayor, right? We all kind of suffer from that relationship or benefit from it. What, if anything, is your current relationship to Albany, and how do you plan to navigate that particular issue? In terms of how your relationship, mending the relationship with the governorship?
The relationship between de Blasio and Cuomo, and how would we manage that relationship if we took office? Well, I'm going to finish my answer to the last question, and then get to the de Blasio-Cuomo issue. One of the problems with the money factor is the press, a lot of the press, not all the press, treats that as a criteria for your credibility. More and more, the question I get from reporters is, well, how much money have you raised yet? It's not what positions are you taking about the public schools, about policing, about affordable housing, about healthcare, about mental health care. So that's another issue that we should be challenging, is the actual culture that surrounds elections and who's an incredible candidate. In regard to the Cuomo-de Blasio, obviously very difficult relationship, sometimes I think of them as two sort of sea lions flapping around in like 2 inches of water in a pool, and each one of them trying to hurt each other or to better each other. I would, if I was mayor, I would deal as straight as possible with Cuomo. I would watch out for the tricks he plays, because he definitely is a tricky customer. I would try to make sure that he doesn't outflank me on certain issues. And one way that de Blasio has been outflanked, for example, on the Rikers issue, by saying Pledge the City will close it in 10 years, Cuomo said, I'll close it in 3 years. I won't tee up things for Cuomo the way de Blasio has.
Time. Thank you.
Sure.
Well, me and the governor have a nice relationship as an advocate. But if I were mayor, I would give him his orders by the people of New York City. I will whip out the Constitution, and every New Yorker needs to get behind their responsibility. Get out and tell them what they're gonna do. These things that we are having trouble with are our fault. We're letting government dictate. I got a whole thing about this. We need to straighten out our government. They'll put a different topic every day to take your eye off the ball. Haven't you been watching? Donald stirred up the country and showed a divide because it was politics as usual. Well, now it's Constitution for everyone, but we need to stand together. This is not a Republican or Democratic issue, otherwise our city will be in turmoil real soon.
Thank you, Mr. Aquino. And now, Mr. Dietl.
In New York City, when Bloomberg left, I think we had a $70 billion budget. We're swinging up near $85 billion. We have an additional 20-something% of not new hirees as far as people working, but all kinds of supervisors. $30 million to do a RAND report on Rikers Island. This other Lippman report that the mayor never read, that was millions more money. But the only thing I'm crazed about, they put together a group, not one of them had anything to do with the corrections department. There were 3 real estate landowners that were on that board. We have something going on in this city. Whether you vote for anybody up here, we've got to get rid of de Blasio. He has done nothing for this city. I'm running for one reason. I love this city. And anybody else can tell me, you have a guy over here, a computer guy, the other guy's against everything. I am for the people of New York. I will run as a Democrat, Republican. Stay tuned to my plight, because I'm coming back on a major party, and I'm going to tell you something right now. I want to run for the people of New York City. I don't care about these damn party leaders and these special interest groups. That's what it's all about. We need a guy who's going to run against de Blasio, who's not afraid of him, and I certainly am not afraid of him. There is nothing about de Blasio I like, and there's nothing I'm afraid of. I want to be the mayor to all the people. That's why I'm in East Harlem and not on the Upper East Side tonight.
Mr. Albanese.
Always a tough act to follow. When I beat de Blasio, I'm automatically going to be in Cuomo's favorability because of the rift that they have. And bottom line is you do need the governor, but you can't compromise your core values. And one of the things that you can do as mayor is use the bully pulpit. For example, mass transit, which is one of my priorities. You know, New York City residents use that system every single day. Millions of people. And if you go out there and gently prod the governor and say, hey, governor, you know, people can't get around the city. And you go out and you talk you're on radio, you're on television, you talk about the mass transit system, you talk about the Brennan legislation that I mentioned before, you will see Cuomo is very vulnerable, not very vulnerable, he's a savvy politician. He understands public opinion, and what you have to do is move that opinion towards a point where he can't ignore it anymore. I was around when Koch and Cuomo, the elder, was the governor, and the trains were literally falling off the tracks. And Koch went on a rampage. Didn't attack Cuomo, but he made sure that he knew that things were not well, and the capital plan was funded, and the trains began to work more effectively.
Thank you.
Basically, the way de Blasio handles things, he doesn't play well with others. He just doesn't know how to deal with people. He shuns them. He turns his back on them. He needs to know how to talk to people and how to get along and try to work together. What I would do is probably set up some kind of something like this, a forum every quarter where the people can come in and talk to the governor and the mayor at the same time and let them know what the issues are and what they want changed. Because Cuomo's completely out of touch. You see him on the TV once in a while. You'll see him at like a big event, like the Kosciuszko Bridge opening, which I took personal because there was a fireman who died and he didn't even show up for the funeral, which I think is pretty disgusting. But I think we need to get the people to meet with them and tell them how they feel and what they want changed. And that's the only way to do it. You can't have a mayor and a governor from the same state not working together because everybody else suffers. So, you know, turning your back on the governor is not a good thing to be doing, and that needs to be changed. So I'm hoping that something happens because I'm saddened by this. I was born in Staten Island. I've lived in New York most of my life. I've gone to the schools here. I've gone to...
Okay, you'll have to finish up. That's time.
Let's get rid of de Blasio.
So I think we need a little bit less progressive ideology and a little bit more progressive action. And you know, when it comes to our city, the state depends on our city for revenue. And so it is in Cuomo and our best interest to make sure that we're getting more money into your pockets, that we're growing our economy, and that we are continuing to strengthen our tax base. So that's the first point. There's a lot of commonality in terms of our objectives. In terms of how we go about implementing that, I'll tell you where we start. Obviously, Governor Cuomo has made it a priority to invest in new infrastructure. We need tremendous infrastructure upgrades, not just with respect to Penn Station and with our subway system, but across the board. We are so inadequately prepared for all the new technology that's coming, for all the cultural shifts that are happening. We talk about the ride-sharing economy. We talk about Airbnb and people sharing their homes and finding another source of income for themselves. We talk about driverless vehicles at some point being an augmentation of our transit system. We are so woefully ill-equipped to implement any of those things. And in order for the private sector to flourish, we need a strong public sector that is open to collaborating with the private sector. And that's something that we're going to bring to City Hall and work with the governor on implementing.
Thank you very much. And I guess we can just start again in the middle with Mr. Dietl. I know.
And we're going to reduce it to 1 minute?
We're going to reduce it to 1 minute because we want to get to Yeah, there's a lot of questions also from the audience, so we want to, because we started 5 minutes late, instead of doing audience Q&A at 8:15, we'll start at 8:20, so we'll go through this quickly. Will you support the Small Business Jobs Survival Act that will allow commercial tenants and business owners to negotiate with their landlords? And what are your plans to minimize the disappearance of small and local businesses? To minimize the disappearance of small and local businesses.
Well, I started a business upon retiring from the police department 32 years ago. I have the same business. It's mostly minorities that work for me, and I know the plight of affordable housing for them. I understand the plight with the MTA, like I talk about subsidizing and all that. I mean, this is one of the areas that is one of the reasons I'm running again. I mean, as far as the small business, they're the ones that spend the money. If the small business get strangled with taxes and taxation, they're not going to be spending the money that is needed in New York City. Also, the fact that, you know, you got a mayor right now, we're talking about these damn bike lanes, destroying our traffic in this city. He doesn't ask anybody. He doesn't say, what do the people think about the bike lanes? Now he wants 50,000 more of these city bikes, 50,000 more bicycles. It's going to look like Hong Kong soon. We've got to be New York City people here and control our city. That's why I want to be your mayor.
Small businesses and small jobs.
I support the bill wholeheartedly. I think it's something that we need. I was on the city council when we had a commercial rent bill in the hopper, and there were a lot of issues about whether it's constitutional or not. I think we have to get beyond that, pass the legislation, and then worry about the courts later. Bottom line is that many neighborhoods have their favorite stores, their grocery stores, the dry cleaners, restaurants are being driven out of business on a regular basis because landlords are hiking their rents to an astronomical level. And it impacts not only those people, the employees and people who own the business, but the quality of life in those neighborhoods is impacted as well. So this is a smart piece of legislation. It's being blocked, obviously, by the real estate industry. And surprise, surprise.
Thank you, Mr. Albanese.
It's very difficult to start a small business in New York. There's too many fees, there's too many licenses that you have to go through, there's too many fines that are levied on these businesses. I mean, there's nowhere to park in New York City for longer than a half hour. You know, the parking needs to be lightened up a little bit so people can come in and go to the stores and go to the restaurants, or, you know, have a day, Saturday or Sunday on the weekend, where you don't have to pay to get into the city or pay to get out of the city. We need some kind of incentive to bring people here, to be able to stay here without having to worry about paying $100, you know, to park their car and have a good time.
And that's time.
Small business is the future of our economy, and so it's really important that we are not just strengthening the small businesses that exist today, but are setting the foundation for people to start new businesses in the future. And one of the things that we can begin to do is provide a suite of services and tools that afford local mom and pop stores, local small businesses, the same economies of scale that big companies benefit from. The reason why so many companies are getting squeezed is because you have larger corporations that are coming in that have better margins and are able to cut their costs and compete much more effectively with local business. So we need to be, as a government, putting together programs that provide the same level of benefits to small businesses so that they can compete effectively. So things like helping them to transition their businesses to e-commerce in addition to brick and mortar, where they're brick and mortar businesses.
And that's time.
There you go.
Down to Darren, Mr. Aquino.
I support the small business, but again, you know, I started an organization, one person, and it's not a business, but it's an organization to help the disabled community so that they could still be able. And there's 125 million disabled Americans. In New York State alone, there are 10 million disabled Americans who deserve opportunity. In doing that, I learned where all the gaps were in all of the programs and practices that we have. That's why I'm running for mayor, because I see all the glitches and all the flaws and all the problems, the overspending, the underspending, the priorities. That's why most of our lives are in the can, because there was no oversight, no direction, a lot of corruption, and this is why. But again, I put all of this on the website. I put hours of videos for you to see and understand everything that we're going through in the city.
Terrific, thank you. Mr. Gangi.
I would aggressively support the Small Business Job Survival Act. It would be one of the top priorities of my administration. We would also support commercial rent control. We need to protect small businesses. We need to give them leverage in negotiating with landlords when their leases run out, so the landlords can't jack up the rent so high that they force the small businesses out. We'd also, as I mentioned earlier, we put an end to quota-driven broken windows policing, which is one of the practices carried out by New York City government that harasses the people who work in small businesses, including undocumented New Yorkers who are put at great risk of deportation because of de Blasio's commitment to continuing to carry out broken windows policing. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's the last of the prepared questions, and now we're going to take questions that were passed to us. We're going to take questions from the audience. So this question has to do with public schools and charter schools. Where's the mic? Do you want to start? Because you have to leave soon, Mr. Dietl. So what is your position on our problems?
We each got a minute still?
Yeah.
Well, my opinion is, my daughter's a school teacher in the South Bronx. Disrupted students, they can't remove from the classroom. The school teachers union is owned, de Blasio. They own de Blasio. They gave $350,000. They can do what they want to do. You got 2 criminal teachers that were arrested, who are in jail, still getting their pensions. You got a lot of problems. Rubber rooms, 2.5 years. I'll give you 45 days. You figure out if that teacher did something right or wrong, or get him the hell out of here. I will kiss the butt of the Board of Education union, and that's what this de Blasio is all about. Charter schools I love. I need people to get good education, whether it be parochial, private, or charter, whatever works. And in reality, we can't lower our standards and having kids from our schools graduate our public schools who can't pass entrance exams. You don't bring the level down. You've got to keep the level there and help the kids to get up to that level.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have a problem with charter schools. They actually could be a positive force because you can experiment and you can do things that may also be transferred over to the public schools. But my main focus will be improving the public schools. I was a school teacher. I'm the only one up here who actually taught in public schools. I taught for 11 years, so I know how the system works. And my kids went through the public schools, so I'm a big believer in public education, and I've got some really solid ideas. Besides reducing class size, I'm going to see internships for teachers. 40% of teachers leave the first year they're in school. So many of them are poorly trained. So I want to do what Boston does, which is have internships for teacher 1 year, and by the end of that year, you'll know whether you can teach or not. So you don't put them in a classroom the first year and then find out that they can't teach or their job's not going to have to. That's a big plan that a big proposal that I have.
As I said before, I'm against charter schools. I think it's a separate but equal thing that was abolished a long time ago. I think that we should have a school system in the neighborhood for all the kids in the neighborhood, would make it convenient so they don't have to travel far, and get a good education there. You could have honor classes. Some of the kids who do better can go to the honor classes, and some of the kids who need special education, you know, they could get the help they need right in their neighborhood. I think charter schools is a big scam, so Ms. Moskowitz can make $500,000 a year. And I think it's ridiculous. I think you live in the neighborhood, you go to the school in the neighborhood, and you learn in the neighborhood.
When it comes to charter schools, I'm not opposed to charter schools, but I think we need much better oversight and coordination. The notion that we are enabling communities in the private sector to experiment on our behalf and to push the envelope in terms of identifying best practices is a good one, so long as we are then taking those best practices and scaling them across the school system, which today we are not doing. So I'm a big fan of taking a step back and thinking through the lens of what do we need to be teaching our kids today to prepare them for tomorrow. And today we're not thinking that way. Our economy is completely divorced from our education system. And so it's not just about rewriting our curriculum and teaching to the individual, which is also important. There is no one-size-fits-all school system, there is no one-size-fits-all curriculum. But we also need to be redesigning our schools themselves, the actual physical buildings from the ground up, to prepare our kids for the future workplace.
That's time. Thank you. Mr. Dietl, do you want to just say a quick goodbye? Because I know you have to leave. Are you leaving?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I want to thank everybody tonight for having me here. It's great to come back to East Harlem. I lived here in 1970 on to 1985. I respect the people of East Harlem. I see what you're going through right now. You just got to think about one thing. Which candidate can beat de Blasio? That's what it's all about. There's a lot of great ideas up here, but who has the power to fight this guy? That's the biggest question here tonight. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you for joining us. So we'll go to Mr. Aquino, back to the question about charter schools and public schools. What are your positions on charter schools and public schools?
Charter schools are good. They offer flexibility to the kids. My wife was a Montessori teacher. Now she helps the developmentally delayed. She's been doing that for 33 years. In fact, she said if she was to become First Lady, she doesn't want to be a showpiece. She wants to continue to work in the education field and be an active First Lady, hands-on. We need to revamp our schools. Today, we heard on the news that a young boy, what was he? She heard 10 or something. He came in with a 15 with a gun, and they didn't find it until 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Every day we're looking and seeing. At the beginning, I said everything is broken. Do you see how many things we're talking about? Now it's down to our education. Our entire life has been disrupted by the acts of de Blasio, but not only de Blasio.
Thank you.
He's not alone there, but we have to take it back. And it's got to be a core New Yorker, somebody that knows and been through the system like myself.
Okay, thank you.
We'll have two priorities in regard to the public schools. Research has shown that there are two factors that improve the academic outcomes for students across race and class lines. One is integration or desegregation, the other is small class size. So we will make a top priority when we take office to advance both those goals. New York City school system is the third most segregated school system in the country. So we will promote the desegregation of our schools and the integration of our schools. We will also find the money, find the resources to provide more space and hire more teachers, to provide small class size across the 5 boroughs of the city. If you go into a private school, The main difference in a private school is you'll go into a class and there'll be 12 students or 15 students. You go into a public school class, there'll be 28 students or 32 students. So you know it's just common sense in addition to the research that small class size will make a richer life for all those students and for the communities they come from. Thank you.
So this is another question from the audience. What are you going to do to reorganize the Department of Housing and Preservation? Mr. Gangi, why don't you take that first?
I'm more concerned, I'm less concerned about the bureaucracy and the institution. I'm concerned about housing policy of the city. And our intention will be, and I mentioned this earlier in answering another question, would be to work in providing affordable housing throughout the city. We'll be concentrating on building and working with community land trusts, and we will put a lot of energy into establishing community land trusts in communities all over the city. We will work with neighborhood housing groups rather than major real estate developers, supporting them and providing housing in their communities that is affordable for the people who live in those communities. We will, as I said, scrap all the rezoning plans that are now underway throughout the city, and we will also make sure that the new housing built in communities are not being built, that we don't assess what's an affordable housing unit by the AMI, which is the area median income, which includes the suburbs, includes Rockland County and Westchester County and Nassau and Suffolk County. It will be a community median income based on the affordable, what's affordable for the households who live in that community.
Okay, thank you.
As it relates to HPD, basically they will follow the public policy of the administration, which is to build affordable housing, real affordable housing. As I said, my pay-the-tur tax is going to generate a lot of income, and that's going to go into real affordable housing so we can stop this displacement, which is taking place all over the city. I will work with nonprofit developers. I will work with church groups, religious groups that are sponsoring building around the city. I've done that in the past. It's not reinventing the wheel. And we have to make sure that people can stay in their neighborhood. It's tragic when you have civil servants, people that work for the city, that are actually living in shelters. That's not New York City. These people work 40 hours a week and they can't afford the rents here. We need to impose rent stabilization all over the city. I, by the way, was on the city council when they decontrolled
Thank you, that's
apartments
time.
in this town. I voted against it. I predicted what would happen. Unfortunately, I was right.
Thank you.
When I was a firefighter for 20 years, I used to respond to the projects and some of the places around here, like the Carver houses. Friday, the elevator would get stuck. Tuesday, the elevator would get stuck. Wednesday, the elevator would get stuck. These buildings need to be revamped. They're hundreds of years old. We need someone to come in and renovate them and do something with them. They need a lot of things. They need a place where people can congregate. I mean, there's really no place for the people to go because they're using all the property and they're not giving anyone a place to, enjoy it with their family. So these buildings need upgrades, especially the elevators.
Thank you, that's time.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm glad that Kevin mentioned maintenance, because I don't need to talk about that. Obviously, we need to be investing more in maintaining the structures and the housing units that we already have in place, and that is a critical focus. But when it comes to new affordable housing units, there are three issues. One is space, two is cost, and three is speed with which we can build these new units. We need many, many, many new affordable housing units. When we talk about space, we just need to be smarter with how we develop new housing units. Obviously, we want to reduce the density in the city so that we can all continue to breathe clean air and have green space and live a life that's not, super, in a city that's not super congested the way it is today. So we are going to propose a series of what we call smart homes. If you'd like, you can check out some of the technology that already exists out there, where space has been optimized for single-family units so that we're making more use of less space. The second,
Thank you, that's time. And let's pass the microphone to Mr. Aquino. And the question was, what will you do to reorganize HPD, housing preservation?
Well, you already answered. I will reorganize it. Because it needs to be reorganized. Again, I don't want to sound repetitious. When I was at the Columbia debate, I was more descriptive, and our whole system is broken down. We need to put affordable housing. We have to preserve the stabilized housing. We have to revisit the properties and see what our assets are. Because here's the truth. We don't know the real books because of the criminal acts, and we don't know the truth. So once we know the truth and we get in there, I'll revitalize. I know how to start. I grew up in the street. I grew up poor. I went through that welfare system. I know how to fix it. And I rose above and became a successful advocate, an actor, and a father. And, you know, I know how to make it happen. You know, a lot of us have the ideas. But you know what? When you've been in my shoes, it's a better understanding of what the problem is and how to address it. A professional politician cannot address it.
I think that's it for that question. So another question from the audience, and I guess let's just start with Mr. Gangi and we'll go down the line. What will you do to ensure that New York City remains a sanctuary city? Will you pass him the microphone? No, thank you.
Well, one thing we'll do is end broken windows policing. De Blasio claims that New York City is a sanctuary city, and in fact, broken windows policing, and it's undeniable, puts immigrant New Yorkers at great risk of deportation. James O'Neill, who's the commissioner, has acknowledged under oath in testimony before the city council that arrest for fare evasion makes the person who's arrested deportable. The fare evasion is the second most common arrest in New York City. And for the first 3 months of this year, for all of 2016, the NYPD arrests between 25 and 30,000 people for fare evasion. 92.5% New Yorkers of color. So it represents a blatantly racist practice. It targets low-income people, and instead of de Blasio supporting reduced fare or no fare, as our campaign does, for low-income people so they can take the subways and buses to get to work, to get to school, to get the health care, he's denying them that. But basically, he and O'Neill direct the police department to ticket and arrest people. We will be a sanctuary city under my administration all across the board. We will not cut out an exception on broken windows.
Thank you, thank you.
De Blasio is a champion of broken windows and of immigrant rights, and that's a direct conflict with each other. Thank you.
Your next answer by 15 seconds. Anybody who goes over, we're going to deduct from the next time.
I'll take 45 seconds.
Sanctuary city. What will you do to ensure we're a sanctuary city?
To ensure a sanctuary city?
What will you do to ensure that New York City remains a sanctuary
It's not a
city?
sanctuary city.
We're not a sanctuary city. We're a city of laws, a country of laws. I will protect immigrants because we're a country of immigrants. I come from an immigrant American family. But if you're a criminal illegal, you're out. You're going to jail. We have to preserve the families and the citizens here. We have a lot of crime. We're not a sanctuary, a city of laws. Those who have been here a reasonable time and contributed to the community like every other immigrant and show that they believe in our country and contribute to it, will try and expedite the process to see to it that they become citizens fairly and equally. But if you're a criminal, you're out on the next bus if I'm mayor.
Thank you.
Because I can't have a citizen at risk. We already have that.
I think, oops, is the mic, cut my mic.
I did.
There's a little button on the side, you just push that up.
I think we're back on.
Okay.
I certainly can relate to the immigrant experience because I'm probably the only immigrant up here. I came here when I was 8 years of age, and I understand how important the immigrant experience has been to New York City and to the country. So I support sanctuary cities. Of course, I agree that if somebody is a violent felon, they should be deported. But the bulk of the immigrants in New York City, like the rest of the country, are basically law-abiding people. And there's a practical reason also for maintaining sanctuary cities. You want the 500,000 undocumented to be able to talk to the police. You don't want your health authorities not being able to talk to people who may be sick, going to emergency rooms. We can have real problems. There's a practical reason why every big city mayor supports sanctuary cities. It's a public safety issue as well.
Thank you.
There's only one real answer to that problem, and it's called amnesty. Whoever is here now can stay here as long as you abide by the law, you work, you produce, and you do the right thing, and you can stay. If you get arrested a few times and you're committing violent felonies, then, something needs to be done about that. When you have judges who sit on the bench and let some guy come in and has 30 arrests and he does nothing about it, I think it's time, the justice system starts enforcing justice and gets people who are committing these crimes and punish them. And if they're from another country here illegally and they keep showing up in court, they need to go. Otherwise, amnesty, if you're going to work hard, this is what this country is all about. We're not going to get rid of the Statue of Liberty anytime soon. And we need to keep immigration.
Thank you.
People need a chance out there.
At the risk of sounding repetitive, I think we need, obviously, great compassion in government, especially today with what's going on a national level. And so when it comes to taking care of our own, I couldn't be more of a proponent of that. If there's a threat from the federal government of withholding funds that we've paid to the federal government, then we will do what we need to do. We will tighten our belts and we will do the right thing. I'm not the brightest guy in the room, but I can tell you I do know right from wrong. And people are here, for the most part, not because they are ill-intentioned. They're here because they want to provide a better opportunity for themselves and their families and their children. And that's something that I think all of us can relate to and respect and appreciate, and something that we're going to protect.
Thank you. So we've got time for 2 more questions. I want to just say, we got so many questions up here. I'm really happy that the audience was so engaged in sending up questions, and I'm sorry that we couldn't get to all of them. But 2 last ones. What do you plan to do if the mayor closes down Rikers Island, and where will the prisoners go? Why don't we just start at that and come back?
Well, the current mayor's plan is a 10-year plan, so let's just put that aside for the moment. We are going to close Rikers, and we are going to form new rehabilitation centers, and we're going to call them as such, because the reality is we need to reform our entire criminal justice system. There is a rate of recidivism that is too high. There are people that are waiting for their day in court for way too long on an isolated island in the middle of the river. And so from that standpoint, it's, again, just the right thing to do to make sure that we're providing a system to those that need rehabilitation that gives them the assistance to not only get back on their feet when they're ready to get back on their feet, but to help them become value-added members of society when they come out of the prison system.
Thank you.
The idea of closing Rikers down is so the builders can build more buildings and donate more money to the campaign funds. Rikers needs to be fixed. It should be maybe only the violent offenders put there. I mean, this is a facility that is there and you can't just close it. What are we going to do with it? I mean, it's something that could be useful, but I mean, closing that down and building prisons in your neighborhoods isn't going to be a good solution for anybody. I don't want a prison next to my building, that's for sure. I mean, it's all about building things. He wants to build more homeless shelters. He wants to build, you know, more prisons, and that's all it's all about. It's not about the people of New York. It's about putting money in the pockets of the mega rich and staying in power. That's all it is.
Thank you.
I consider de Blasio's plan a scam, really, because these guys can't keep their word from 1 week to the next. 10 years from now, that's a mockery. We all would like to see Rikers Island closed, but bottom line is that you still have people that are committing crimes. You need a place for them, and if you can come up with neighborhood facilities that and without community opposition, that would be great. And that's why these politicians who are talking about closing Rikers when they're out of office 7 or 8 years are basically playing PR games. We need to reduce the population in Rikers. We need to fix the criminal justice system. We need to look at legalizing marijuana for recreational use. We need to do an awful lot of things. The bureaucracy around criminal justice is incredible, and that has to be
Thank you, that's time.
But let me just make one additional point.
We'll deduct that.
Right now, Rikers Island is very dangerous to the inmates and to the correction officers, so we got to deal with the issue right now.
Thank you.
Again, it comes back to leadership. The leaders we've had destroyed our economy, our systems and practices and policies. I will see what the cost of that would be, because all costs fall on our backs. If we can repair it for a reasonable amount, or use the inmates as part of their good time to do it, and teach them a trade, we have to investigate our resources. Everybody's quick to spend our money, and that's why we don't have any and they have it all. We have to reinvestigate. It's not a simple answer. We assess it, we look at it. It's yes, Mr. Albanese is correct, it is dangerous for both criminals, but you know what? Leadership takes over and we correct it. This is gonna be done by us, or it'll fall under another policy. If we don't elect a mayor that's a person of the people, then we're gonna get nothing. And that's that.
Thank you.
Thank you. You know, I'm never gonna get my back. When I become mayor, we will close Rikers within a year. Here's the facts. 70% of the people on Rikers Island are pretrial detainees. They're presumed innocent. 90% of them have not even been charged with a violent or predatory offense. Most of the people held on Rikers Island do not have to be held there, either for purposes of justice or efficiency or public safety. So we will, by eliminating broken windows policing, we will eliminate the main government practice that causes the unnecessary confinement of people on Rikers Island. We will also promote the elimination of cash bail. Right now, bail is a system that's preventive detention system for poor people. We eliminate that. So we can close Rikers Island, and we don't need to spend the $10.6 billion on new jails that was embraced by de Blasio. And we could use that money to put into schools and other kinds of program services that would be truly helpful to the people who now end up on Rikers Island. Is that almost 45 seconds?
Yeah, that was good. So I just have a quick yes or no answer. Have you been to Rikers?
Yes.
Have you been to Rikers?
I have. Many times. Public safety can do it.
Okay. And the last question, you each get 30 seconds for this one. Give us your number one thing you want people to take away tonight from this event. 30 seconds.
It's the speed round.
So 30 seconds is my campaign will be promoting social, racial, and economic justice across a range of issues. I've discussed them: policing, criminal justice system, affordable housing, homelessness, public schools. We didn't talk about it. Mental health care, health care. The driving theme will be racial, social, and economic justice. We want to create a city that's a beautiful city and a livable city and an affordable city, an inclusive city for all New Yorkers.
Yes.
Thank you.
I will restore our city back to the city of greatness. I will bring us back on top. I'm a man who loves this city. We own this city. Together we will work. There will be no discrimination, no racism. I will unite the neighborhoods and communities. I will bring us back on page. I will be the mayor of the people, not the mayor who serves himself, but the mayor who serves the people. And I'm Darren Aquino.
Musical mics.
My campaign is about restoring democracy to New York City and making our political system a model for the rest of the country. We have a broken political system at the federal level, at the state level. Cities are in the vanguard of reform. I want New York City to be the shining example of democracy where everyone has input and we can't solve any of the problems that we talked about here unless we make this city more responsive to average people instead of a few fixers. That's what we have. The political class in this city has democracy in gridlock. We want to open up the process.
You're a favorite, we know.
I tried.
Sal.
Basically, my campaign is about prioritizing education for the children. Also going green to leave something for the children. And also, I want to make it so when people need a response, they're going to get it. They're gonna call government and someone's going to show up and they're going to do something about what the problem is and they're going to take care of it. They're going to listen to what the people have to say and some of the problems will go away.
Our campaign is about upgrading our city and simplifying and de-stressing your lives. And the way we're going to do that is by making sure that you have more money in your pockets today and you are prepared to earn more money in the future. And as an extension of that your children are also well prepared and equipped to earn the income that they need to live in the city as well. So with that said, I really appreciate everyone being here today and affording me the opportunity, and thank you.
Okay, so let's have one final big round of
wanted to
applause
say
for
one
all.
thing.
What?
I wanted to say one thing that I didn't get to say. Well, I'm dyslexic. I should have got a little accommodation, but it's okay. I don't want to enhance the city. I want to enhance every life. It is our right. It is their duty. And that's what the elected officials should be doing for us, helping us build our lives.
Have a big round of applause for all of our wonderful candidates. And a big round of applause for us for showing up.